This is episode 20 of Radio Artists, a podcast by Studium Generale Artists. Almost 2 years ago, we published an episode on the power of Moroccan roots music, written and curated by musician and writer Samira Dainan. And we're glad to say we have her back for another one. On the coldest day of 2021, Samira went to Hoofddorp, to poppodium Duiker, to meet with Ousmane Ag Mossa, the bandleader of Tamikrest. Named the new legend of Tuareg music, Ousmane speaks on what it means to write music in the solitude of the Saharan desert while in exile. In this episode, he speaks on the power and the meaning of his music, and how each song breathes a whole life world in history. So without further ado, I'm handing you off to Samira.
For this podcast, I will dive deep into the story of the blues of the desert and that of Tamasheq, the people of Tamasheq language, often referred to in the West as Tuareg, as a result of naming by the former French occupation. The Tuareg are a semi-nomadic people living in northern Mali and across its borders in Niger, Burkina Faso, Algeria, Mauritania and Libya. They are descended from Berbers, Amazigh of North Africa, and speak an Amazigh language. They practice Sunni Islam, often in syncretic form, incorporating traditional beliefs. They have a very strong music culture, and since the last 20 years, Tuareg bands are getting very popular in the West. A lot of Tuareg people have long been driven from their native land and are living in refugee camps near the Algerian border or in northern Mali. More than 30 years ago, the legendary group Tinariwen sang their own style that was often referred to as guitar music or Assouf. The language is Tamasheq, and the predominant emotion is Assouf, meaning loss, longing, homesickness, or the pain that is not physical. It's a word that encompasses everything the Tuareg once had but have since lost. No word is more common in modern Tuareg music and poetry. From the first time I heard Tinariwen play in Paradiso in Amsterdam, I felt very connected to their music and culture. Maybe because they have such strong roots in North Africa, but also play music that is close to the blues. Later on, I discovered other Tuareg bands as I traveled to the desert of Morocco, where I was invited to play in a big festival of Sahara music, Festival Taaragalt. In the desert, I found that my own Assouf, or homesickness, was understood by the great silence of the desert, but also the generosity of the people. This experience inspired me to become the first Sahara blues artist from Amsterdam. In the end of 2018, the band Samira's Blues was born and even became support acts in the Netherlands for two major Tuareg groups, Ibrahim and Tamikrest.
فالسوس ترهنا درمانين وارتزاي
Gerhanuni Samahari with With this podcast, I hope to find out why this music from the Sahara in Mali, Niger, Morocco and Algeria became so popular in the live scene in the West, and how their message of emancipation is so powerful. On the 28th of November, the coldest day of the year so far, I headed to Hoofddorp, of all places, to meet Tamikrest, one of the most illustrious bands among the new generation of Tuareg groups from Mali. It was surreal also because COVID caused a lot of cancellations of their shows, even a whole European tour in 2020. But finally I had the chance to meet them again. When I heard their story and saw them play, I forgot everything about Corona. Like Sheikh, the bass player, told me, in the desert is no Corona. For the interview, I spoke with bandleader Ousmane Ag Mossa, already called the new legend of Tuareg music. Tamikrest was founded in Kidal, Mali in 2006. They also call themselves the children of Ibrahim, Ag al Habib, the founder of Tinariwen. When riots and regional conflicts again began to rule their lives in that year, they decided not to take up arms, but to take up their music instruments. Oui, ça marche. Okay. Bonjour, Ousmane.
Bonjour.
Hello, Ousmane. How do you feel about the term desert blues? Does this touch your word Assouf?
Cela touche-t-il à votre mot Assouf?
Pour nous, la musique que nous jouons, c'est un peu Assouf.
The music we play is Assouf, if we want to name it. For the exterior or the West, there's often reference needed. So our music is not far from the blues, from musicians like B.B. King, for example in rhythm and touch on the guitar. Just our technique is different, same as the vocals and compositions. The words blues and Assouf have the same meaning. It is nostalgia, the origins of the blues, and they lay in the nostalgia from the Africans who created the blues in a different continent as their own. For us, some music was written in exile, but in the traditional songs, the nomads and caravans were always in solitude, even as the shepherds who were searching for food for their stock in remote areas.
C'est un peu aussi notre musique.
Et y a-t-il d'autres mots qui ont un sens profond pour toi et que tu chantes aussi? le mot comme Assouf.
Are there more words that have the same deep meaning as Assouf that you use in your songs and connects with your traditions?
Le titre,
Like you choose the title of your new album to be Tamotate, meaning hope.
A de la signification profonde pour moi.
oui,
Parce que c'est comme derrière chaque chanson ou chaque parole, il y a une longue histoire.
Of course, everything I sing has a deeper meaning. For me, every song has a long history in it, a whole life. As you can understand as an artist, the time and conditions in which you compose are reflected in the songs. The little amount of words you use are in this way transformed into a profound meaning.
Qu'il a écouté, ça a une signification, bien sûr.
oui, vous avez parlé un peu de blues, de B.B. King. Quels sont été vos exemples
And
musicaux?
who are your examples in music?
Des exemples musicaux.
Peut-être pour le dernier album.
En fait, j'étais toujours ouvert je n'étais pas ferme, par exemple, pour juste, je dis, j'ai un goût de musique.
oui.
I was always open to everything. I have a broad taste in music. As an artist, you carry a certain essentials inside you. And when you listen to others, you discover you develop your own style. I listened to a lot of local music, and very soon also Occidental American music, which I heard on tapes like the blues, the Dire Straits, reggae artists like Bob Marley, and African artists later on, Alpha Blondie, but also Eric Clapton, and rock music.
Oui.
De rock, c'était Mark Knopfler, le groupe de Dire Straits.
Cool. Et tu penses que c'est pour ça que ta musique est aussi
Oh, is that
populaire
why your music
ici,
is also popular in the
en
West?
Europe ou bien en Amérique?
Pourquoi est populaire, ça, je ne sais pas du tout. Je ne sais pas si c'est populaire ou pas, en fait. C'est
I don't know. I think because the attention lies on the beat or rhythm, it will take your music further. The message inside the songs is first of all for our people and culture. But the most important thing for us is to play better than you ever did or others did.
كيماني بازيون ديول هين دنسكام تجرا وتكمت النات جرماني ندمان كيماني بازيون ديول هين دنسكام تجرا وتكمت النات جرماني ندمان مشلاني بس دلان الخالي بس دراسي وتنت مزمان كيماني بس يهون الدولي هنا دنستان تجرى وتكمت الله جرماني ندمان.
Oui, une autre question un peu longue, mais l'histoire de souffrance et de rébellion.
Your history of suffering and rebellion is striking, which is also sung in your music. And more precisely, also your displacement. That is reflected in the lyrics, as well in your habits and music. I think it's very special and it touches me, because I recognize it. I think that this aspect is also recognizable for many in the diaspora community, both in the Netherlands and abroad.
Et que, ben, comme c'est juste il n'y a pas longtemps dans l'histoire, en fait, il n'y avait pas ces frontières artificielles et que chaque peuple ou chaque a une...
Until recently, there were no superficial borders in Africa. Every people had supervision on their territory. The nomad, the sedentary, or the herdsman. the Tuareg occupied a large desert. In a difficult environment, they could live their life more freely and keep their culture, language, and agriculture as they wanted it. Unfortunately, after the colonization, it became hard. There were new divisions in territory, and they created borders in the desert. In my eyes, that was not the only problem. The dominant state imposed their law on the inhabitants without concessions, and freedom was deprived. Nowadays, a lot of people face this and are neglected in their traditions and way of life. In Mali, the government has no respect for the indigenous people, and because of this, the people don't live in harmony with each other anymore. I see the solution lies in their independence, Azawad, so they can decide on their own lives and territory again. It's not correct that someone comes and takes over the desert and its people, who has no experience to live in these conditions. Also, multinationals explore the ground for petrol and uranium, like it's a sales market. It's all very corrupt.
Et que tout va bien, tu as une villa à Bamako, tu t'en fous des autres.
Ouais.
Non. C'est ça la réalité.
Ouais. Et un message d'émancipation que les musiciens Tuareg
A message that the Tuareg musicians spread is passing on the Tuareg or Berber culture and ensuring unity among the different tribes as an opposition to extremism. Maybe that also contributes to your success among your people?
Contribue à votre succès parmi votre peuple.
Des messages en fait, en général.
I have my own vision apart from that. Maybe there are people who know more than me and others less. It just depends on the reality you live in. For us, sometimes it's not easy to play in front of an audience who doesn't understand Tamasheq. Although the context is not always understood, for us it is important to keep our language alive. But the music is universal and can take you anywhere. When, for example, I come to visit your concert, first it is the music that attracts, then the person behind the artist. Because I know you have Moroccan roots, I know more about you and your culture. And nowadays we also have the internet to look up the lyrics. Next to this, we can also learn about the situation of the people and political meaning behind the songs. Also, the feeling of a song tells you more.
Le dernier. Pourtant, l'islam.
My last question. In Morocco, there is a moderate Islam that is also linked to Sufism. This movement promotes solidarity and brotherhood, also towards dissenters. Yet Islam in the West is often mentioned in the media in the same breath as terrorism. Is that also a topic that interests you?
Oui, ça m'intéresse, oui, parce que je suis musulman en fait.
Oui.
Je pense que ce n'est pas correct en fait. Ce n'est pas du tout correct. Aujourd'hui, dans la politique ou dans toutes les guerres qu'on amène, quelquefois on essaie juste d'amener quelque chose de plus sacré devant pour attirer l'attention des gens, par exemple.
It interests me because, in fact, I am Muslim. It is not correct to take something sacred just to get the attention from the people, like Daesh does, for example. For me, they are not Muslims. And also for the media, they assimilate. It is just a very small group who are terrorists and misuse Islam. Muslims talk about peace. Islam is salam. It has nothing to do with terrorism, and it doesn't convene us.
نحن شعب الطارة لازم يضحى عبد للعبيد قالوني من أنت وماذا تريد انتهاء الزمن طوال العمر.
They asked me who I am and what I want. I replied that we are history and change. We are the volcano that comes from afar. We are the Tamasheq people, became servant of servants. We are the ones who have suffered oppression for years. We are the people who hope for better days. I was asked who I am. I was asked what I wanted. I didn't look for an answer. I just closed my eyes and let our experience speak. I'm a volcano of distress and oppression, and it's up to me to choose my path. I'm that rebellious spirit born of cruelty. Let that dupe ignorant know that I'll never put myself down. These are the days that choose fate, and I'm at the heart of that fate. I'm the one whose time thought it had the consent to impose its injustice and kill my youth. Never say my cause is lost. My cause has just begun. I am my legacy, my song and my tears. I am myself. I am behind the veil. I am a volcano of sadness that will destroy and reveal the lie in its path.
سألوني من أكون، سألوني ما أريد. لم أفكر في الإجابة إنما أغمضت عيني وتركت الدهر يحمي. أنا بركان من المحنة والقهر سأختار هديه. أنا ذاك المارد القادم من دهر القساوة. لا يظن الغافل الجاهل أني أستكين. إنما الأيام تختار القدر وأنا أجلس في عين القدر. أنا ذاك الطارقي. أنا من ظن زماني أنه نال رضاي وأعان الظلم واغتال صداي. لا تقل أمر انتهى إنما أمر ابتدى. أنا إرثي وغنائي وبكائي. أنا كلي أنا بعضي. أنا في ذاك اللثام. أنا بركان من الحزن سيقضي بعد حين. سيعري كل آفاق الكريم.
Thank you for listening to Assouf, The Blues of the Desert, written and curated by Samira Dainan. Special thanks to Ousmane Ag Mossa for his time. We have included a link to Tamikrest's music in the show notes, where you will also find a link to Samira's website. If you haven't listened to our first episode with her, The Power of Moroccan Roots Music, be sure to check that out. It's episode 12 of this season. Studium Generale editor for this episode, Rana Gavami. Thank you for listening.